Make sure you subscribe on all platforms and leave that 5-star review. Let's get it.
So that means the next time we get on the plane, it means business. Where is we going? Are we going down to Miami? Are we going back to brotherly love? Are we gonna go to Indiana?
Just told his ass, that's what we love that. Keep talking that. That's what we like. Well, I love it, So, can't say nothing back, but I'm pretty sure he heard me. They heard me. Yeah, we live for that.
Talk about
it. You are now tuned in to Above the Rim. Hoops talk for the streets.
Family, what's good? Welcome back to another edition of Above the Rim. Hoops talk for the streets. You already know how we do, family. Brought to you as always. It's your host, Justin, aka Just Blaze. Family, you know the drill to get in contact with me. You can always hit me up and follow me on Twitter at JustBlaze_513, on IG at JustBlaze513, on Facebook and YouTube. Search Above the Rim Podcast. Also email the show as well, Above the Rim NBA Podcast at gmail.com. Tap in and leave the family a voicemail. The line is always open. 908-718-1592, family. Best way to support the show, as you know, cop your merch. Reminder to support the family. 20% off all orders until the end of the playoffs. Use promo code ATR Playoff. That's promo code ATR Playoff. Link is in my bio. Very easy to find. Show some love. I appreciate it, family. You know how we do. Let's get right into it, man. I don't have time for the games. I don't have time for the nonsense. Let's get right into it, man. We are in the conference finals right now, family. The conference finals. The Final Four. We are here. We finally made it to the Final Four teams vying for the 2024 NBA Championship. And I tell you right now, not too many people, I should say, had this four, as their pick for the conference finals. I know I didn't. I don't know about y'all, but I didn't have this four. I had a version of the four. I had the Celtics in there. That's probably it who I had out of this Final Four here. But it's interesting. It shows a lot. It shows about the league. There's a lot of parity going on and things of that nature. And this is the first time that the conference finals will not feature a former MVP for the first time since the award was made in 1956. So that's something special right there. Listen, the next wave, next generation of superstars, they're not waiting their turn anymore. They're not waiting their turn anymore at all, family. Young stars have taken center stage in this playoffs, and the remaining four teams in the playoffs are all led by players in their 20s. Boston, Dallas, Indiana, Minnesota. Jaylen Brown is 27. Jason Tatum is 26. Luka's 25. Halliburton is 24. Anthony Edwards is the tender age of 22 years old. These young stars are stepping up right now, family, and we love to see it. So let's get right into it. Conference finals, 2 series, four teams ready to battle it out to get to the NBA Finals. So let's talk about it, right? The Boston Celtics, Indiana Pacers, Eastern Conference Finals. This is a battle of two teams with two of the premier teams offensively in the NBA. What's going on right now? I'm so hyped for this finals. I'm over here messing up. Two of the premier offensive teams in the NBA right now, right? This is the Celtics' 4th appearance in the Eastern Conference Finals in 5 seasons. The Pacers are in their first conference finals since 2014. The Celtics regular season series, the Celtics won it 3-2, but the Pacers were just one of 4 teams to defeat the Boston Celtics twice this season. Indiana, we know, is a high-powered offense. They topped the NBA with 123 points per game during the regular season, the 6th highest average in league history. In addition to that, they also scored 140 11 times this year. This was a record. 11 times this year, scoring over 140 points, which is ridiculous if you ask me. Defense, come on now. Also, the Pacers had the regular season offensive rating was second only to the Celtics. And now in the playoffs, that basically flipped. Indiana Pacers are the number 1 offensive rating. The Boston Celtics are the number 2 offensive rating. So this is going to be a battle of a high-powered offense, two high-powered offenses going off back-to-back in this series, right? So talk about the Pacers a little bit. Halliburton and Siakam, they drove the Pacers' attack against the Knicks. I'm not going to focus too much about what both of these teams did leading up to getting here, because I'll do a separate episode on the teams that they beat and what happened, like as far as the Knicks, as far as the Nuggets, as far as the 76, all those kind of teams. But for the Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam drove the Pacers' attack against the Knicks. How much did Halliburton average in this series? 21 points per game. He shot 53% from the field and shot 43% from three in that conference semifinals against the Knicks. Pascal Siakam, Spicy P, averaged 20 points. He was 52% from the field and 40% from three. Obviously, we know the Indiana Pacers had that historic Game 7 in the Garden to take out the Knicks. Not only to take out the Knicks, to smack the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. So that was ridiculous right there. And I talked about Halliburton and Siakam. This made them the first duo to average 20-plus points, shoot above 50% from the field, and above 40% from three in a conference semifinals. You got to give them a lot of credit for that. The Indiana Pacers have been balling, exceeding a lot of our expectations that we had of them, and you got to give them a lot of credit. On the Boston side, we know that they haven't really played fully healthy teams yet. They played the Miami Heat. They beat them in 5 games. After that, they played the Cleveland Cavaliers. They beat them in 5 games. Both teams who weren't as healthy as they should have been. Jason Tatum has been a little bit inconsistent in the playoffs this postseason, but he's still averaging 24 and 10. Jaylen Brown is averaging 23 and 6. Derek White, who has emerged in this postseason, I mean, we all knew about him going into throughout the whole season, but the postseason he has stepped it up, averaging 18 and shooting 43% from the three-point line. So the Boston Celtics had a lot of stuff going on right here. Game 1 is going to be a perfect opportunity for the Indiana Pacers to see if they can steal Game 1, if they can ride their momentum coming in from Game 7 into Game 1 of this series. Teams coming off a 7-game series are 33 and 55 in Game 1 of the following series. And that's a 37% win percentage. So not great odds for the Pacers, but they're going to try their best to try to steal a Game 1 because it's going to be tough to steal Game 2. But we know sometimes you can book the Boston Celtics for losing a playoff game at home. It's been happening in the past couple of years. It's happened in last series. It's happened in the series before that. So you can book the Celtics to lose at least one game. I don't think they're going to sweep them. It's not going to be that easy. I know a lot of people who are not giving the Pacers much of a chance in this series, but they got a little bit of a chance. It's the NBA. Every team has a little bit of a chance to win. It's if they can execute. And we'll see if the Pacers can execute. So on the Pacers side, in this Eastern Conference Finals, they have 7 players averaging over 10 points per game in the playoffs. A lot of depth, a lot of balance on their scoring attack. Tyrese Halliburton's playmaking and Siakam's versatility will be crucial for the Pacers, especially in this series, as they seek to challenge the complex Boston Celtics defensive schemes, because they are one of the better defensive teams in the league as well, other than the Indiana Pacers, who defense is optional for them, I should say. Defense is optional for the Indiana Pacers, right? So the Pacers, Indiana Pacers, I said one of the better offenses in this postseason and in the league in general this whole year. They have 8 games this postseason with 30-plus assists, while all other teams have a combined 6 games of 30-plus assists. So that shows that they share the ball well. They get up and down the floor. Tyrese Halliburton is obviously the main head of the snake in their balanced offensive attack, but everybody shares the ball, everybody runs, everybody moves, everybody shoots threes, everybody is running in transition. So you got to show the Indiana Pacers a lot of respect. And the only other team with at least 8 playoff games with 30 or more assists as a team was the 2018-2019 Warriors, who had 9 games. So they're creeping up on that record if they could get another game with 30 plus assists. Let's talk about some of the advantages for the Pacers on their side. Their bench, that can be an advantage for the Pacers in this series. Their bench offers a little bit more depth, a little bit more versatility than the Boston Celtics. We talked about, obviously we know about TJ McConnell. He's a tenacious defender, a hard-nosed defender. He brings a lot of intensity. It was a major important factor in that series win against the Knicks. Obi Toppin, Isaiah Jackson, they add some size, some athleticism, and also Jalen Smith, his versatility coming off the bench. The Pacers always have a plethora of bodies to throw out there against the Boston Celtics, especially in this Eastern Conference Finals. So that's going to be something that the Celtics have to watch for, some of the advantages of the Pacers. And if the Pacers can keep their pace, if they can wear down the Celtics, that's going to be something to look out for. An injury for the Boston Celtics right now, another injury, I should say, for the Boston Celtics will be tough for them to deal with. Obviously, we know Kristaps Porzingis will not start the series against the Pacers. He probably will be back, I think from Woj said about Game 3 or Game 4 will be the estimated time for when Kristaps Porzingis comes back. So we're going to be monitoring that because that's very important. They may not need him to take out the Pacers, but they're definitely going to need him in the finals. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more towards the end of this segment, talking about their series. But the key to the strategy for the Indiana Pacers is the performance of Spicy P and Tyrese Halliburton. Siakam and Turner must deliver dominant performances if they want to exploit the Celtics on the inside. They're going to need to, because one of the Achilles heel of the Celtics is their inside presence, their inside defensive presence, and their rebounding at times, so that could be something that the Pacers look to exploit if they do have any advantages on their side. On the Celtics side, we know there's a lot of advantages there, but I'm going to just go through a few. The Celtics, they have outscored opponents by a combined 114 points during the playoffs, despite just playing only 10 games. They have the two best players in this series, as we know. That's already a major advantage right there. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown both average over 28 points per game against the Indiana Pacers during the regular season. So we know they have no problems getting buckets on this team. They have no problem scoring on anybody, scoring on Naismith, scoring on Halliburton, scoring on Nembhard. Siakam is probably going to have to play some extra defense, but they can score on him too. He's no all-world defender. So it's going to get interesting on the Celtics side because they have all the advantages in terms of matchup-wise against the Indiana Pacers. Derek White, I brought him up before. He's been impressive all postseason, averaging 18 points per game, shooting 43% from the arc. He's going to be very crucial in this series. If he can put the ball on the floor, make some plays for himself and for others, which he has been doing, the Celtics will be in good shape. And one stat that I saw also, the Celtics, they lead the playoffs in field goal percentage in the paint, but rank last in their percentage of their shots that have come in the paint. So they shoot the best in the paint, but they don't get into the paint often enough, or as often as they should be. Basically, is what the Celtics, what's going on with the Celtics. So we're gonna watch out for that a lot in the series because the paint scoring, paint presence, that's gonna be very extremely important on offense and defense. So we're looking for that battle between these two teams in the Eastern Conference Finals. A couple of things I'm watching for on the lowest of keys in this series. I'm looking at that backup point guard battle. Peyton Pritchard, TJ McConnell, is it going to get chippy? Two scrappy guards coming off the bench, very similar roles for their respective teams. They do a lot of the same things. Their games are pretty similar. They're chippy and they're pretty similar in that. I want to see how that backup point guard matchup is going to work out because we know TJ McConnell, he could get a little feisty. And then I've seen Peyton Pritchard too. He doesn't really back down from conflict when it comes to him. But the Celtics, that ain't no team with no fighters. Come on now. First of all, this whole series, the Pacers on the Celtics, neither one of these teams are tough, physical, hard-nosed type of team. So any type of smoke will be welcomed. I'll say that. The Pacers are also a very big threat on the perimeter. The Celtics can't underestimate their offensive prowess, especially on the perimeter. Boston must be smart in how they pressure the perimeter. If they close out a little too hard, some of the Pacers will drive right by you and attack the rim. They're prone to do that. And if you sag off, if you're the Celtics, the Pacers are very confident to let that fly. So you got to look out for that for the Indiana Pacers. Also, one thing that I'm looking out for on the lowest of keys, how many games will Kristaps Porzingis play? How many will he play? Because we know he's not going to start the series. As I told you that before, he's probably be back game 3 or game 4, but that's still up in the air. There's no definite. They just said maybe he'll be back by games 3 and game 4. And why it matters how many games Porzingis plays is because he needs to kick off the rust before the NBA Finals, if they do get there. Both will be tough matchups for him in the NBA Finals, even if it's a vertical threat, the vertical big man threat of the Mavs or the physicality of the T-Wolves big men. But with Porzingis on the floor, we know the Celtics are at their best. How many games does he play in this series would actually be an important prelude to the next series, the NBA Finals, if they get there, because he's got to shake off that rust. You can't be out damn near the whole postseason and then just come back in the NBA Finals and expect to play huge minutes in that caliber of game and that type of intensity in an NBA Finals game. So he's going to have to come back maybe game 3, maybe game 4, get a couple of games to get his feet wet, to get acclimated back into the lineup, because the Boston Celtics are going to need him if they're going to be any of the two teams in the West. So he's extremely important, as we all know. Prediction in this series, It's gonna be tough. I can't say that. It's not gonna be tough. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, the Celtics had the two best players in this series: Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. They should have their way offensively in this series. They should get strong looks on offensive end throughout this series. Jrue Holiday, he should keep tabs on Tyrese Halliburton throughout the series. I'm no big Tyrese Halliburton guy. He could get some buckets. He could get some assists. He could move the offense. But is he going to take over a series? Not in my opinion. Pascal Siakam has to be the leading scorer on the Pacers if they're going to win any games. He's going to have to average about 25 plus. But I think the Celtics are equipped to deal with a guy like Pascal Siakam. And I think Jrue Holiday is equipped clearly to deal with a guy like Tyrese Halliburton. So if Porzingis returns at least halfway through the series, I think the Celtics will be able to gain momentum quickly in the series and be able to put away the Pacers, who probably shouldn't be here, if we're being honest. So I'm going to go Boston Celtics in 5 for me. Boston Celtics in 5. Maybe 6, but I'm going to go 5 for the Boston Celtics. So we're going to see. Eastern Conference Finals starts very soon. We're going to see how that series shakes out. Moving on now to the other conference finals, the Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Listen, the Western Conference is going to have a bunch of star power on both sides, right? In Dallas, and in Minnesota, star power on both sides. For the regular season series, the Timberwolves, they won the regular season series versus the Mavericks 3-1. Luka and Kyrie played together in only one of those 4 games, mind you, and all 4 of those games came before the addition of Daniel Gafford and of PJ Washington. So that was before the mid-season acquisitions that the Mavericks had to have really propelled them into this position. So I don't know how much you can take for that regular season series, because Luka and Kyrie, they only played in one, didn't have Gafford, didn't have PJ Washington. So actually, this Mavericks team is a totally different team from the last time the Timberwolves actually saw them. So it's going to get real interesting to see how the Timberwolves adjust, because they can't use a lot of that regular season game tape, because this is a little bit of a different roster, a better roster, mind you, for the Mavericks, right? Anthony Edwards has emerged as one of the most electrifying stars in the NBA, taking out 2 of the top preseason title favorites in the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets in dramatic fashion. The Timberwolves have developed into an elite defensive team with the ability to shut down their opponents and control the pace of the game on both ends. They can control it on offense, and they most definitely can control the pace on defense. So we're going to be looking out for that. The Dallas Mavericks, they obviously have the dynamic scoring duo of lukadoncic, Kyrie Irving, a tandem that can dominate in any series, especially offensively. Luka, with his playmaking and his scoring abilities, he's a constant threat throughout the series, throughout a game, averaging 27, 9, and 9 per game in the postseason. And we all know about Kyrie Irving. His clutch performances, they're unlike any other. We know he's their closer. He's the guy who's going to close out a game. Luka's a closer too. So they have 2 elite closers in the Dallas Mavericks team, as we've seen against Oklahoma City Thunder, as we've seen against the LA Clippers, right? 2 dynamic offensive closers that they will have no problems utilizing on a consistent basis, especially in this series, right? So defensively, especially for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Jaden McDaniels, he's tasked with the tough task of defending Luka Doncic for an entire series. And this is going to be a critical matchup that shapes the series, as we all know. Probably the most important matchup. This assignment, Jaden McDaniels, is so crucial because it allows Anthony Edwards, it allows Karl-Anthony Towns to focus a lot more on their offensive game, giving the Timberwolves a slight edge overall in balance, because they're able to focus a lot more on the defensive side of the ball because they have that one stopper. Now, the Mavericks don't necessarily have that one stopper. They would like to think that Derrick Jones Jr. is their stopper, but he is not much of an elite defender in the same way of a Jaden McDaniels, as we've seen throughout this postseason, because he's been taking on the opposing team's toughest matchup, and he's been doing it. Been shutting down Devin Booker. He's been semi-shutting down Jamal Murray, all right? KCP was nowhere to be heard of. Michael Porter Jr. was nowhere to be heard of in that series against the Denver Nuggets. So Jaden McDaniels has been doing his job, and he's been doing what he's been paid to do. So shout out to Jaden McDaniels. His matchup against Luka Doncic is going to be extremely important in this series, right? So let's talk a little bit about some key factors, some things I'm watching for in this series. The Timberwolves, their bench. is going to be, and I think will be, a key factor in this series. They have a solid bench. Obviously, is anchored by the reigning sixth man of the year, Naz Reid, my man Nazareth Reid, who brings versatility as a scorer, as a defender, as an athletic presence. He's a game changer, man. Naz Reid's ability to stretch the floor with his shooting and the way he can impact games on both ends of the floor. He was playing defense on Jokic and he was scoring on the other end. His presence, his production for the Minnesota Timberwolves is a game changer. Naz Reid is a game changer for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't know if the Dallas Mavericks have anybody off the bench to match up with him. Yes, they have Derek Lively to come off the bench and play against him, but Naz Reid can hurt you on the perimeter. He doesn't only hit you inside, he hits you on the outside as well. He plays a lot of pick and pop with Anthony Edwards, a lot of pick and pop with Mike Conley, a lot of pick and roll with both of those guys. So he's very important. And most importantly, he allows them to not worry. He allows the Minnesota Timberwolves to not worry about Rudy Gobert's production as much. Because when he comes in, if Rudy Gobert is having a shitty game, you can easily come in with Naz Reid and there's no drop off. It actually, one may say, could be an upgrade with Naz Reid coming on the floor for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So he's going to be a huge factor in this Western Conference Finals. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he provides additional scoring punch, some defensive capabilities to go against Kyrie, to go against Luka. Kyle Anderson, slow-mo, he brings some high basketball IQ, playmaking ability. Monte Morris is also solid coming off the bench. So the bench is going to be a key factor for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And as opposed to that, the Dallas Mavericks bench, they're solid, but they could be better. But maybe it's because they don't utilize them at much. They got a couple of pieces on there. Tim Hardaway Jr., one of my guys. Dante Exum, Kleber. I don't know if Kleber's going to be back in the series. We'll see. Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, and Derek Lively. They have a couple of pieces on that bench, but they're all very complimentary to what Luka and what Kyrie gives, right? They lack that standout player off the bench, like a Naz Reid that could come in and give you a 20 points off the bench or 22 points off the bench, but they can compensate that with depth. So we'll see. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dante Exum could provide good floor spacing, good scoring threats. Josh Green, Jaden Hardy also as well, bringing that intensity, that energy off the bench that they're going to leave. And Derek Lively, their standout rookie from the coming off the bench now for Daniel Gafford. He's a great, he adds some rim protection, he provides some rim protection, and he's a tremendous lob threat for lukadoncic. So we know he's been playing well above his means over in this postseason already. So we're going to see how Derek Lively ups his game in this postseason. I want to give a major shout out to Anthony Edwards right now, right? What he's doing in this postseason right now is nothing short of incredible. He has jumped up so many people's lists in the NBA after his postseason performance thus far. Everyone's list he's gone up on. If you had him at top 15 before, he might be top 10. You might be top 5. If you had him at top 20, he might be top 10 now. So he has had the biggest leap in terms of public perception, in terms of where they ranking players and when they're listed in terms of position or in terms of overall player and where they stand in the league, right? Some people are already calling him the face of the NBA. So he has done the most in this postseason to up his stock in terms of perception, in terms of everything right now going in the NBA, right? And if there's one characteristic that defines Anthony Edwards, it's his unwavering, unrational confidence. This young man is very confident every time he goes into a series, every time he goes into his game. He's never thinking that he's going to lose. And that's the mentality that you need to have going into every postseason game. But what I've been most impressed about when it comes to Anthony Edwards is his leadership. For a young guy, he has really shown that this team is his, but he does not hesitate to uplift and empower his teammates and give them credit any chance that he gets. If you look at a lot of his post-interviews, post-press conferences, he's always bigging up Karl Anthony Towns. He's always bigging up Rudy Gobert in every press conference, and also called Jaden McDaniels the team's playoff MVP. If your star player is calling someone else the team playoff MVP, that shows the credit that he gives to his teammates, and he realized how important his teammates are to his success. So I'm telling you right now, that's not normal, guys. For a 22-year-old player with this amount of game, with this amount of talent, with this amount of heart, getting this amount of praise, getting this amount of love from the national media right now, very humble guy. Shout out to Anthony Edwards for that. I mean, he's been incredible. His leadership, his unwavering confidence, he's been amazing for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the only players age 22 or younger to average 25, 5, and 5 and reach the conference finals, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Anthony Edwards. That's it. That's it. Anthony Edwards deserves all the spotlight that he's getting right now. His defense also deserves to be spotlighted as well because he was excellent all last series on defense. Actually, throughout the playoffs, he's been tremendous. Guarding Jamal Murray, guarding Devin Booker, guarding Bradley Beal. He has taken the challenge upon himself to guard the best opposing team's best player. He said in game 7 after that win, he knows that his matchup is Kyrie Irving, and he wants to make sure he does a good job guarding Kyrie Irving because that's going to be an exceptional matchup to watch for. So the Nuggets, the guards and forwards who were guarded by Anthony Edwards, I believe shot around 30% when they were guarded by him in that series. That's incredible. Incredible. So shout out to Anthony Edwards, man. I got to give him some love. For the Mavericks, obviously, we know Lukadoncic is going to be tough to deal with. He's going to be hard to deal with. He's the first player in NBA history to have 3 straight triple-doubles to close out a series. Luka and Kyrie combined for 48 points on their way to the conference finals. That's the 4th most by any duo in their postseason together that have gone on to the NBA finals, I should say. So that's the 4th most by any duo in their first postseason together. So I got to give those guys a lot of credit. They are stepping up in this postseason. PJ Washington, he's emerged as the 3rd scorer or maybe the 3rd best player on the Dallas Mavericks. He shot over 40% from 3 in the playoffs. Can he keep up that pace? Can he deal with this Minnesota Timberwolves defense, PJ Washington? We'll see. Jason Kidd, he's done a tremendous job learning how to integrate Luka and Kyrie Irving effectively. Couple of things I'm watching for this series. How will Kyrie Irving navigate that Timberwolves defense? His production has been very important, and his production to me is the most important in this series. He didn't have a great one against OKC. He only averaged 15 points and 6 assists in the Western Conference Semifinals. But when you look at that series, yes, he didn't have the greatest offensive explosion as we're used to, but he was the glue in that series. He was the leader in that series. He kept everybody together, and he kept everybody positive for the Dallas Mavericks. And as we've seen, he is the leader of that team. Lukadoncic is the best player, but Kyrie Irving has become the leader of that team. And shout out to him for stepping up his leadership when a lot of people were shitting on Kyrie many years ago, and even last year more so. So shout out to Kyrie for really rehabilitating his image and really stepping up. One stat that could swing this series, effectiveness at the rim. Since February 10th, somewhere around there, the trade deadline, Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington have made their team debuts for the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks ranked 2nd in the NBA in field goal percentage on layups and dunks. The Timberwolves allowed the league's lowest field goal percentage on layups and dunks for the entire season. So that's going to be a clash right there. How effective is each team going to be at the rim? How effective is Dallas going to be at the rim, especially with their lob threats, especially with their alleys from Luka to Lively, from Luka to Daniel Gafford? Let's get into the prediction in this series, man. This one is tough. I had a hard time really thinking who was going to win this series. I think this Western Conference Finals is going to be a battle. It's going to come down to which stars perform at a higher level. I think Anthony Edwards will meet what Lukadoncic will do in terms of raw impact, even if Luka's numbers, all-around numbers, are a little bit better. Townsend going to bear. They're going to need to dominate on the inside, dominating Gafford and Lively if they're going to win this series. Kyrie Irving's production is super important in this series. His effectiveness is super important in this series. Kyrie Irving is my X factor for the series as a whole, and especially for the Dallas Mavericks. If PJ Washington can continue to shoot over 40% and Luka can play like the best player in the series, the Mavericks could possibly win this series in 7. But the Timberwolves, they got more star power. They have I wouldn't say star power. They have more balance, more depth. Mavericks have more star power with those two guys, but they have more depth. They have an excellent trio of big men, a hellacious defense, a real, and you know what? They have the momentum right now, defeating the defending champion Denver Nuggets going into the Western Conference. But they have the momentum right now. So with that being said, I'm going with the Timberwolves in 7. I think the series is going to go 7. I'm going to go to Timberwolves, man. I'll put my money on Anthony Edwards. It's going to be tough, but I'm going to go to T-Wolves in 7, man. I'm not going to lie. Family, before we get on out of here, I want to go over my top 5 takeaways of the playoffs so far. I just quickly jotted this down before I came into the studio because I wanted to get this down. Starting, number 1, Anthony Edwards is the best shooting guard in the NBA right now. I think he solidified that in his postseason run. I know this is one of his first real major postseason runs, but you got to give him a lot of credit, man. He took down the Phoenix Suns, he took down the Denver Nuggets, and he's trying to take down the Dallas Mavericks en route to going to the NBA Finals. So taking out Devin Booker, Bradley Beal in last series was tremendous for his perception overall and his standing in the league right now. And we're going to see what he does against Luka and Kyrie Irving. But right now, I think he's the best shooting guard in the league. I think I'm confident in saying that. Also, Jayson Tatum has become underrated. So many people are calling him overrated that he's now become underrated. It's getting ridiculous. I know he hasn't won an NBA title, but he's a young player, 26 years old, and he's been in the conference finals already, 4 of the last 5 years, 6 out of the last 8. Like, come on. That's nothing but winning. He's getting there. Now, I know it's tough to even win an NBA title. I know a lot of people who play basketball don't realize that, but it's very tough to win in the NBA, okay? Getting there is very tough, difficult in itself. So you got to show Jayson Tatum a lot of credit, give him a lot of credit for being the lead guy on the team that's been to the conference finals so many times. Number 3, a lot of y'all need to fill out those Kyrie Irving apology forms, right? You people been shitting on Kyrie for a couple of years now, ever since we know all the COVID stuff, everything that happened over here in Brooklyn. I'm still mad that he left Brooklyn, but he had to. They weren't treating him right. I get it. But a lot of you need to fill out a Kyrie Irving apology forms. He stepped up his leadership. He stepped up his play. He stepped up his effectiveness. He stepped up his level of being a teammate. And he's just been a model teammate for the Dallas Mavericks since he's gotten it. Him and Luka, their friendship is blossoming. You can see they're growing together. Their chemistry is getting better. This only year 2. So you got to give a shout out to Kyrie Irving. Fill out those apology forms. Building chemistry is the most important factor in building a contender. You can't just throw teams together, throw talent together and think it's just going to work. You just can't do that in today's NBA. The era of the super teams is over. The era of super teams is dead. You need chemistry and you need elite chemistry in order to make your way throughout the postseason, in order to get through adversity together, in order to get through a bunch of playoff series together. We see a lot of these teams that are winning right now. The chemistry is important. T-Wolves, tremendous chemistry. Mavs, tremendous chemistry. Celtics, tremendous chemistry. Indiana Pacers, tremendous chemistry. New York Knicks, tremendous chemistry. Look at all the teams with great chemistry, and they have done really well in this postseason thus far. Last but not least, playoff basketball will expose you. If you don't have the heart, you don't have the heart. Playoff basketball is not for the weak. I'm telling you, man. It's very difficult to win in the NBA. It's very difficult to win in this league. It's very difficult to win in this postseason. Playoff basketball, if you don't have the heart to win, if you're not ready to deal with all types of adversity, playoff basketball will expose you. I'm not going to name any names of players who have underperformed in this postseason. You guys know who they are. They know who they are. I know who they are. Everyone knows who they are. Postseason playoff basketball will expose you. You gotta have the heart. And that's all I'm gonna say on that. Family, I appreciate you joining me again for another episode. Make sure you hit me up on Twitter and IG and Facebook with your NBA takes. Let me know what you think about this Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals. Let me know your picks for both of these series. Let me know who you think the MVP is going to be for both of these series. Let me know your NBA Finals matchup. Let me know your NBA Finals prediction. I want to know all of that. Make sure you hit me up in the comments on YouTube. Make sure you hit me up on Twitter. Make sure you DM me, all that good stuff. However you get in contact with me, email me. You want me on your show, email me as well. You want to reach out to me in any way. Email me. If you're not one of my main damies, you don't got my number, email me, holla at the kid, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, make sure you hit me up everywhere. Send in a voicemail with your thoughts, 908-718-1592. Write down your playoff predictions in the comments. Subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. This is episode 223, family, and we out.